Hi, I'm Renee Walker, a mindset mentor, speaker, and lover of all things spiritual. I believe that at our core, we are all spiritually wired for love, peace, success, and abundance. Here on the podcast, we're diving into mindset, wellness, and business, but always through a spiritual lens. Let's just say we're going deep, but we're keeping it light. So let's elevate your life from the inside out, one conversation at a time. Welcome to Spiritually Wired. Welcome to Spiritually Wired. I have a guest today. Her name is Holly Short, and she is an educator. She's a holistic practitioner. She specializes in gut health, hormone healing, and midlife transitions. Holly is also a beautiful friend of mine, and I wanted to have her on at the beginning of the year because to me it's like this is when so many of us are setting goals. And for many, I know that our goals revolve around our health because our health is, our most important asset. And it can also feel very overwhelming. So Holly and I were having a conversation and I'm like, I need you to get on to help us, support us in just simplifying what our goals around health can look like. So welcome, Holly. I'm so happy you're here.
Thank you.
Okay, Holly, tell us about, so I know as I just was mentioning in the intro, like it's great that we have access to so much information right now. It's wonderful. And it's also incredibly overwhelming. And I know personally, I tend to complicate things, or I feel like maybe it's the messaging around us that complicates everything. And that is not taking into account the fact that for those listeners out there who may be at a stage in their life or their body is changing, that to me has just felt like the rug has been pulled from underneath me, right? Just at this stage of the life that I'm at. So that being said, living in this more sort of like complicated world when it comes to all of the different options that we have around health, what would you say? Can you help us and guide us as to like what would be the areas that are important for us to focus on? Let's just keep it simple today.
Okay. Thank you. I am all about keeping it simple, trying to educate all of us that we can do this with ease and that we get to give ourselves some grace because who we were 20 years ago is not who we are today, 20 years later. We've had lots of layers of life and things that have been going on. So I have lots of people who say, why can't I, maybe it's lose 10 pounds in 10 days or, insert the different things that we hear. And the body that we are so blessed to live in now, she's been through a lot of things. And so now it's about relearning what works best for our bodies today, now, mostly in a perimenopause, menopause, early to late 40s timeframe. The very first thing that we can start with, it is easy, it is free. All I need you to do before you start to eat your meal is take a big breath in. Let's do it together. Take a big breath in, fill up. Let that breath go. So already we've just brought our body into rest and digest, and now we get to eat our food in peace, and we get to chew it 20 to 30 times. 20 to 30 times.
I'm going to stop you there because you had me at ease. I'm having a Jerry Maguire moment. You had me at hello, you had me at ease. And thank you for this because I know that lately this has been a very active season in my life, and I know for many listeners, I'm sure they're going through the same thing. And I noticed, so I've asked you to be a part of this podcast. I am working with you right now, so you are in the process of helping me, and I feel like just bringing awareness to the way in which I am eating has been like a huge eye opener. It's not even like just the foods, but it is the times that I'm eating, the way I'm eating. And I have noticed how lately it's something that I used to be good to do before, but now I've noticed how I'm rushing. I am like sitting at my desk eating while I'm doing something else. I, am like, let's say that's the time where I can, catch up on social media to do my posts, and I'm eating. I am not present, and I'm going right into it. And I've had a few moments where I'm like, oh my goodness, like my sympathetic nervous system is full on activated right now. So I'm stressed and I'm just plowing food into my body, expecting it to do something with it, which it cannot. You just said, right? It needs to be in that rest or digest, that parasympathetic state. And so that is such a simple yet incredibly powerful thing that everyone can do. I love this. We can all take a
Everyone can
deep breath before we eat.
take a deep breath. Don't talk when you're chewing. Take smaller bites of your food, and don't drink liquids with your meals. Here's something very interesting that I don't think many women understand, and it goes to men as well. But as we get older, and for women, as we go through the stages of perimenopause, the very first thing that starts to shift, is our digestion. So that's what we start to notice, things like I'm feeling more burpy, more bloated, I'm not hungry. And so what's happened is stress, and stress from all areas of our life, not just children or parent or work, but stress of eating or not eating, stress of swallowing our food, big chunks of food, like all the stresses in our lives support that shutting down of our digestive system. So if your digestion isn't working at its optimal, you are not going to absorb the nutrients you are bringing into your body. So many people now, we are very aware of what we need to be eating to give our bodies what it needs, the nutrients. But when your digestion isn't working for you, then you are taking in food, you are not absorbing the nutrients. Now what's happening is it's going into, I just say it goes into your belly, and it just sort of sits there, and it ferments, and it gets a little dusky and dark and damp. All nice words,
Those
right?
are the parts we don't want to think about.
We don't want to think about that, but I think if we can really understand, like something as simple as take a deep breath, chew your food, enjoy, be present in the moment. And I know that not every moment of the day are we able to do that, but if at least if you start with one meal and do that and allow your body to absorb the nutrients, so that now it's like whatever comes in must go back out again within a certain transit time, and that our bodies are designed naturally to break down our food, but the stress starts to shut that down. It will come back again. We just have to give it some extra love. So that's the ease part. What's easy not to do is also, or easy to do is also easy not to do. And when something like this seems so simple, truly knowing that you will get your nutrients in, that will help your hair, skin, nails, will help you go to the bathroom, will help you with your belly, will help in all the areas of your life. Chew your food.
Yeah,
Start there.
I love to, it's almost like going back to like, it's less about what you do and more about how you do it. And that again is accessible for everyone. So you're not talking about, doing some big changes and, spending a fortune on a million supplements and the whatever new gadget is out there, because there's so many different things. And I'm not saying they don't help, they do, but it's like we don't need to start there. just paying attention to how we are eating. And I know, one of the words that I always love and I come back to is the word sacred, right? So, sacred to me is like when I think of the difference between just habits versus rituals, to me, it's that a ritual is sacred. I create an experience around it. So, as we're having this conversation right now, I'm thinking, okay, I think part of what I want to invite into this new year is creating more of a sacred experience around my food
Love that.
because I've lost that part. And when you invite a sacred quality to anything that you do, you're present. You invite gratitude, right? That's how you go way back. And I know like religions still do that, but most of us have lost that, just the idea of blessing your food and inviting gratitude. And to me, that is where like now the mind body connection is you are working with your food, inviting it in a way that gives your body the opportunity to digest it. And so thank you for this. This is like a huge shift in what my health goals are going to look like this year. I appreciate that so much. Thank you.
Oh, you're so
Okay, so we've got the experience, we've got the inviting how we're eating, taking a deep breath before slowing down, being present, chewing your food, slowing everything down when it comes to eating so that your body has time to shift. Your nervous system first shifts into that rest and digest. Now it can start to do what it needs to do in order to provide you with the nutrients and all of the goodness that is in your food. So love that. What would be another area that you would recommend people
yep.
bring some energy to this year with their
Wow.
nutrition?
I love this. So I like to do things around four pillars. I like to do it around digestion or nutrition, movement, supplementation, and lifestyle, which really comes back to your area of expertise into the mindfulness part. So my next bit, which again is free and just takes you a little bit of time to work it into your schedule, is taking a walk after your meals for two reasons. First, it's the movement piece. The movement piece helps you now. You've now just enjoyed your meal, you've digested the meal, and so now we are going to help support that, put that food into the cells that it needs to go into. A simple 5 to 10 minute walk. The benefits there is if you are able to go outside, so then you get to be outside in nature. So that's already bringing another layer of that rest and digest to our body. Maybe we get to go out for a walk with a friend, a partner, our children. So now we have a layer of connection, which is also good for our mindset. And so now we've just taken care of actually like three things. We're helping digest, we're getting out for a walk, so we got some movement and exercise, and we have a chance of connection.
Perfect. And that's something that you really encourage the walk after meals. And I've been like so good at doing that. And I love it because it's like you're letting again, you're working with your body. Your body needs the movement and it makes sense. We're not doing what makes sense anymore, right? Like we're going against what is just naturally we tend to, of course, the more you move, the more the food can move and do what it needs to do. So it makes so much sense. I have to say, I find it so much harder in the winter though. Like this is part of I have to work on this piece personally, and I'm sure some people listening are maybe the same. So I'm investing in a good warm jacket this year because we've moved closer to the lake and I'm feeling the difference in the temperature.
It is cooler by the
But
water. Yeah, but you could
beautiful.
also do 10 squats. How about you
Okay,
just do,
so it doesn't have to be outside.
you don't
Okay,
have to be
that's good
outside,
to
but
know.
maybe you just move around a little bit more. Maybe there's a little
Yeah.
party in your
Yeah,
kitchen
you
as
put
you're
on some
cleaning up.
music, you have a little dance.
Move your body. Just move your body. Digestion, go through the body, just make
Yes.
and just keep it simple. Like not all the time do we want to be walking outside, but there's lots of times I'm just doing 10 squats or having a party in the kitchen with my kiddo
Yeah,
while
thank
we're
you.
tidying up.
Thank you for giving us an option. I love that because I was
We need
thinking if
options.
it's not that, then it's not going to happen. But of course, you can still move inside your house. So I appreciate that option. Okay, so we're going to breathe, we're going to slow down, and then we're going to invite some movement after every meal in
Yes.
order to give the body an opportunity to digest and to do its work. Love it.
Yes.
Okay. What's next?
Number three. So number three would be I would take that back now to the supplementation piece that I think that almost every body, every person needs the support in is our stomach acid. So if our digestion, once we get into perimenopause and as we get older and we have more layers of stress in our life, our digestion starts to slow down. So if that is slowing down, that means our natural digestive enzymes aren't working to its optimal level that our body is actually born with. So what do we need to do? We now need to support it. So we're supporting it by chewing our food 20 to 30 times. We are taking a walk or doing some air squats, having a little dance party, we're moving the body. But what else can we do is we can take digestive enzymes. And so what I like to do for everyone, and I have something out there that everyone can do a stomach acid test on their own, is to simply buy a really beautiful product, not super expensive, and you can do a stomach acid test for yourself. I wouldn't say to everyone, just go buy a stomach acid support because you don't know what your body needs. My body might need more support than what your body needs. So we run this stomach acids test. Super simple. You're just taking a supplement every time you eat a protein dense meal, and we get to see where does that land in your body. And then once we know, then that's going to be your therapy dose. And so now everything you need in the very first stages, before you even remove inflammatory foods, switch up your diet, go to a gym, do any type of testing, all of the things, we can do all of the things. But the very first thing, if you can chew, if you can move, and you can do the stomach acid test, all those things are supporting the very first thing that has gotten tired as we get older and go through different layers of stress is the digestion. So those would be my three most important tips before you do everything and anything else out there.
So, a lot of your work is really based on getting the gut, like supporting your gut and your digestion. And for all of the women who are listening, we keep hearing about hormones. And I know that you also work with hormones, but we tend to go there first. And I know that in your work, you're like, no, let's go to your digestion first. Let's get this going. And then we'll talk about hormones. But I'm curious, so why do you start with the digestion and the gut first before you go anywhere else?
Right. Well, usually I have everyone do a 5-step assessment. And one of those assessments is actually around your digestion. And they say that our first brain is here and our second brain is in our gut. And so what's happening is our hormones are being affected because of what's happening in our digestion, what's happening in our gut. So if we're going to start working on our cortisol, your stress level, so what are those things that we can do to bring down your stress? So we want to bring down the stress of your nutrition or of your digestion, right? We want that to start working for you. So that's the first step before I tell you for cortisol, go and do this protocol now. Let's work on your digestion first. For people who have high levels of insulin, before I give you this whole protocol of nutrition to follow, we need to work on your gut first, which is let's get your digestion working for you so that when I give you the protocol for your new plan that you're going to follow, are you actually absorbing the nutrients from it? Mm-hmm. So it really, and it's not that we start in the gut and then the hormone thing comes like light years later. Mm-hmm. It all really comes together pretty quickly. Like once we get into those couple of steps, then we get to work through digestion, we get to work through sleep, we get to move through movement, all of the pieces that holistically, because I look at the whole body. We are a whole person, a whole body. We're not just working on one thing. We work on the gut, supports the hormones, supports the sleep, supports the rest. All of those things all begin to heal. And as they begin to heal, you begin to feel better. And if you're holding on to any stubborn body weight, it literally starts to melt off your body. We
Okay.
heal, fat goes away.
Thank you. I love this because, again, it's like everything we're hearing, it's all about our hormones and the digestion piece. It's almost like that's like the boring thing to talk about. Maybe I'm just the only one who thinks that.
It's not sexy. It's not
Well, that's
sexy.
the thing. But I mean, and it's the same thing with my work. It's never the sexy stuff that makes the difference, but that is what we're kind of like guided towards. And I know that like another thing for me, and I know for many women in my life too, it's like, it's just becomes like menopause, perimenopause, that whole stage, and I may not be popular for saying this, but it becomes this like crutch that we use too. And I found myself at one point, I'm like, okay, I'm not saying this anymore. Like, I am removing this from my vocabulary because I became so aware of how, and it's not to say that the symptoms weren't real. I was like checking the box on all the symptoms and still am on many of them. But then it becomes just this like entity, this thing in your life. And I'm like, I don't want to give power to that. And I'm also recognizing that maybe it's time for a little wake up call. There's other things going on. Like it's like an easy thing to blame. Like, oh, let's just blame that.
Yeah.
When really, I haven't been doing the things that I need to do in order to support my digestion, which is what you're teaching us, educating on us on, is the fact that that is where it starts. And if we can start by supporting our digestion, yes, we can still, there's still maybe work to do with the hormones, but now our body is prime and ready to be like, okay, now let's look at this. Now let's, make the shifts. But it can't happen if we're trying to. I feel for many of us, maybe we're like hoping we can bypass this. And what you're saying is like, no, let's start here. And I find like the good news with digestion is that it's doable. Like it's easy,
Yeah.
as you said, all of these things that you're giving us. And I know that I've been doing with you is like, I can do this. I can manage this. It doesn't have to be complicated. And as you start to feel better, then you start to feel more empowered, inspired to be like, okay, now I'm ready to bring more. So
Yeah.
I love this approach, and that's why I just wanted you to come and share with us. Now, your step 4.
Well, my step 4 then is really taking a look at overall our lifestyle and our lifestyle in terms of stress. So we didn't just wake up yesterday with bloating issues, go to the bathroom with what people are calling menopause belly, brain fog. We didn't wake up with those things. These things have all been layers and layers and layers of things that have been already going on in our lives. So how do we make changes to that? We have to look at what are we doing to mitigate our stress. We know we're not living in a stress-free life, but are we doing one of Renee's meditations at night before we go to bed? Are we journaling? Are we reading? Are we going for those walks in nature? Are we being around people who bring us joy? So it's trying to find something for everybody because not everybody wants to journal and not everybody wants to yoga, but it's finding that part for them because we need to find those moments where we can bring the body back into, I just keep calling it the rest and digest.
Yeah.
We want to rest. We want everything to digest, all the things, whether it's food or self-love. We need to find that self-love bit.
Absolutely. And
And
I know
that might
for
be
me,
the
when I
hardest
did
bit.
meditation teacher training, one of the things that really sort of helped me was to understand just how most of us are living in a sympathetic nervous system
Mm-hmm.
state. And and I know many people listening may already be aware of this, but just to sort of like have that understanding, it's like when we're stressed, our body just goes into survival mode and it's doing its job that it needs to do to protect you. So it's nothing as bad. It's just that it's conserving all of its energy to be in to prepare you to fight whatever threat it is. And it used to be that we had like,
Tiger.
okay, we're fighting bears in the woods, we're fighting all those things. But now our threats, our potential threats, because our body can't tell the difference between what's real and not. It's like your boss calling you that, and you're like, oh my goodness, what is this call about? That's a potential threat. Your kids, something is happening with your children at home. That's a potential threat. You have an argument with your spouse. That's a potential threat. There's so many potential threats to your survival, right? Which is how the body is perceiving it, that it's very easy to sort of be in a state of now chronic stress, right? Where it's like the body's in this sympathetic nervous system and there's no time for it to now go back into that rest and digest phase, the parasympathetic nervous system, which you're talking about, Holly. And so unless we are very intentional, maybe years ago we didn't need these types of practices in the same way because we lived in a different world. I even think when we were kids, I don't know. I mean, I know our parents were stressed, but it just was different.
It was
Now
different.
we're constantly bombarded.
Mm-hmm.
And so it requires, in order for our parasympathetic nervous system, our rest and digest to be active, it requires being intentional. It doesn't just happen. It sort of like requires awareness around it. And so everything that Holly is sharing, like going for a walk, journaling, meditating, all of those things, sometimes we see them as being like, oh, that would be nice. And it's like, well, it would be nice. And it's also vital because those are the ways in which you actually are activating your rest and digest. That is what your body needs to come back into balance. And so for me, when I did that training and I really sort of looked at the science of it, that's when it just clicked, where I'm like, okay, this is not just like, oh, it would be nice to, or, oh, I should be doing this. It was like, oh, yeah, no, I need to do this. People need to do this. Or, like, this is where, because when you're in that stress mode, everything shuts down. And it shuts down for your protection. But if you're doing this for 20 years, yeah, of course we're feeling the results of it now. So the lifestyle piece is so much more important than people realize, right?
100%. We could already start to feel better if we just started to pay attention to the lifestyle piece. It is not the burger or the poutine or the French fries that got us into a place that we are currently in. It
Yeah.
is the stresses that we don't know how to mitigate, manage, and all of this gets to be a relearning time. Like we get to step into perimenopause, menopause. First off, we're blessed that we even get to go through this, right? And so
Beautiful.
now instead of just surviving and complaining, and I mean complaining, I get it because I also have lots of different symptoms that are going on. But I look at it in a way as to how can I make changes that are best going to support my body to allow me to continue to thrive and not just survive and complain my way through this. Let me look at my nutrition. Let me look at some simple supplementation. Let me look at some simple movement. And what are some of these pieces that I have been thinking must be nice? And like you said, it is must be nice, but it is a priority. Make it a priority. Now is our time to make ourselves a priority, not an all-day thing. Pockets of time, 5 minutes
Yeah.
in the morning, 10 minutes at night. It doesn't have to be hard. And we only just need to start with one thing, be consistent with it, give ourselves a lot of grace and ease, because we are used to doing everything all at once, and then nothing changes in 2 days, and then we're just like, screw it, and then we go back to not doing anything. So what if we could just chew our food 20 to 30 times? That in itself, within 7 days, you will already see benefits in your body. Then add on trying to take a supplement, then add on the walking. And then in a month from now, your digestion is working, your bowels are working, you don't have so much brain fog, your skin is starting to glow, your hair is looking better. Simple little steps, because it's lifelong. Lifelong. It's not a diet,
Amazing.
it's forever.
I love that, and I'm just like, as we're having this conversation, and it's like, yeah, I feel like we probably like we were getting away with those things in our 20s and 30s, right? The like eating and like just on the go and doing all those things. And then it's like just yeah, it gets to a time where maybe it starts to catch up with you. And now we're at the point where and I love how you reminded us like we get to be in a place where we are going through this phase and we get to make ourselves more of a priority. And now it really is a relearning of okay, our body, because certainly I know for me, like what worked before is not working now, right? Like before I remember I'd be like, oh, okay, time to like, and now, yeah, the body is just not working in the same way, but it's also an opportunity. It doesn't have to be, we get to choose the perspective that we have. And this perspective now, and I'm really sort of like keeping it. I mean, we all know people who sadly have not had the opportunity to live to be long enough to be in this phase. So thank you for that reminder. I love that. And a reminder of how important the lifestyle is. It's not just a, like, oh, yeah, let's do that. There's meaning to it and there's reason behind it. You mentioned the word sleep before. And so before we sort of end our episode, I just wanted to revisit sleep because it is something that I know personally, like I've always been a good sleeper. Like I've been that person that goes to bed early, never has any issues. And then, and then,
And then,
then things became a little bit different. And I've been working on some things, taking some hormones that have helped me. But it's something that I hear with so many people. And I just would love to sort of like, if anyone here is listening and they're struggling with sleep, which I know is many, how would you support someone who's having some issues with their sleep?
yeah, well, I think the first thing we need to know with sleep is that it is our body. When we're not sleeping through the night, whether we're having a hard time falling asleep, having a hard time staying asleep, and or our body waking up at certain times in the evening, say between like 1 and 3 a.m. just to go for a quick pee break, that's our body telling us, hey, knock, 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 something's going on. Something's going on with your liver. Maybe you've got a little bit of stress going on right now. Not to mention, as we get through perimenopause, menopause, our sex hormones are changing, estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, all of that stuff is changing and depleting from our body. So the very first thing that you can look at is like what we used to do with our kids. We had a schedule for our kids. They had dinner, they brushed their teeth, they had a bath, they read a book, they went to bed. Same time every single night. And it seems almost ridiculous, really. I'm 52 years old. I don't need a sleep routine. I've been busy doing life all day. I want to be able to watch a show, have a cup of tea, maybe scroll on the internet at 10 or 11 o'clock at night before I go to bed. But all of those things are unfortunately not serving you. So very simply would be start to pay attention to when you're finished your last meal. Our bodies work in a circadian rhythm. Our female body works a little bit differently with cycles, but we want to be eating about 3 hours before we go to bed. So we're kind of like eating when the sun comes up, finishing our meal as the sun goes down. Now, here in Ontario, our window of sun is about a minute. So ideally, though, you want to stop eating about 3 hours before bedtime. You want to turn off TV, bright lights, electronics at least an hour before bedtime. You want to sleep in the pitch dark, not like the little light from my Oura ring or my watch that shows up across the room. Pitch dark. Get an eye mask. You want to sleep with your body. Body wants to be colder. So whether you turn down the temperature of your home, or you have a sauna or a nice hot shower or a hot bath, and then you crawl into bed because the body wants to be cooler. So if those are some things that you could start to implement, not all of them all at once, because I think when I tell people that you need to come off your electronics about an hour before bed, everyone's like, well, what's my downtime? So how about we start with 15 minutes before bedtime, and then eventually just, maybe you pick up a book, maybe you're doing the meditation, maybe you've got a skincare routine that takes you 15 minutes. Like that gets to be your time, but it takes time to carve it out and to put it into practice. No different than we were sleep training our children and getting them into a routine that would benefit them. It will benefit us as our rest improves. That's our growth hormone, which our body produces all on its own. The more rest we get, the more support for our cortisol and for our hormone and for our insulin, for our gut health. So it all gets to work together.
Yeah, and I mean, it comes back to the same thing where it's like, we can be frustrated, but are we doing what we can to support our sleep? And the reality is that oftentimes we're not. And again, we could get away with doing all that stuff years ago. Years ago it worked. So it's like, we're always constantly in every area of our lives, we need to check in, like what's working and what's not working. And those are the times where sometimes like there's certain areas where it's like, okay, well, this isn't working. It's not working now. And what am I doing? And what can I shift and change the way I'm doing? And it doesn't require spending money and buying fancy things. It's more just how I do it, right? We started out with that. It's like, it's not what you do, but how you do it too. So like the sleep and coming back to really paying attention to those. I love that. I know, I'm a big reader. I love to read. But one of the things that I know has been challenging a little bit is I'll read on my iPad.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, well, this is it, right? Now I've got the screen. So sort of like having the paperback books. Mm-hmm. I know one thing that I love to do to unwind in bed. My family thinks I'm crazy, but I color. I have like coloring, the coloring books, but it's like the mandalas and like different things like that. It's not like images, but if I'm like doing something, and then of course journaling, writing, but like it sounds so simple, but I can't tell you how many times I've been asked, well, what do you do if you're not on your screen and you're watching TV? Like, what do you do at night? Because we tend to still be like quite alert. I'm like, well, that's what I do. It's not fancy. It's not,
and it's not sexy.
it's not rock star looking like, that's for sure.
But even for yourself, like, because when we're looking at doing things with ease, is you enjoy reading your book on your screen. So the thing you could do right now, so that you didn't have to go out and change out to a paperback, even though I know you have lots of paperbacks, but is to buy blue blockers.
Yeah, the blue
Is
blockers.
to make sure that the room has got like red light or dim light. So I mean, that's where you get to start, and then you progress and you progress and you progress, right? So you still get to have your book. You just add on a layer of protection to help your body, because you want your body's melatonin, which it makes all on its own, to be able to, sun comes down, melatonin kicks in, and so then you say, I'm gonna go watch TV. Melatonin's like, oh, you don't need me right now, bye. And then we don't fall asleep, we don't sleep through the night, we're waking up at different times throughout the night, and we wonder why we're waking up hungry or not hungry, craving, grumpy, brain fog. It's because we haven't gotten the rest. The rest is, our parents used to say all the time how important rest is. Rest is truly important for our insulin, for our cortisol. We need that growth hormone piece to support all of that.
Yeah, and not to mention just like your overall mental resilience, right? I mean,
Correct.
how do you handle things the next day on a good night's sleep versus when you've not slept well. Like it's incredible the difference that it makes. And I definitely want to just dedicate a whole episode to sleep because I think it's just such an important thing. And even, like we haven't even gone into like partners and how that can affect. Because now it's like not
Snoring.
just your sleep routine, but your partner's sleep routine can also affect what you're doing and stuff. But this is a good start. So really paying attention, and I love sort of just like looking at it as like just as you did with children, as you would do with a child that's learning, and you're training them to go to sleep. And so what is your what is your routine? And that can be a fun thing too, right? Like it doesn't have to feel restrictive. It can be like a beautiful thing that you are doing for yourself, and you are priming yourself for a beautiful day. So Holly, I could speak to you forever. Thank you so much. I appreciate how you've kept this in a very digestible way.
Boom.
A little humor there. I love to ask I love to ask my guests, what does spirituality mean to you?
Self-love.
Perfect. I love
Love
it. It
myself.
really always starts with self love. And that is like the big piece when we are thinking of setting intentions for our health and how do I want to feel. And it's like, how can I love myself to health? Right? I remember reading someone said something like, you can't hate your body to health. You can
Yes.
only love your body
Love
to
it.
health. So, that's a beautiful way of tying in the spiritual aspect of it. And that is like such an important piece that helps to bring it all together. So thank you. Now for people where is the best way to connect with you, to reach out to you?
The most active that I am is on Instagram, and it's Holly Short, and I'm there. I love to talk about, educate, support. I do it all there on Instagram, and or also through my website, hollyshort.com.
Wonderful. So we're going to link that in the show notes. I know Holly's amazing on Instagram, so she's a great resource. So you can reach out to her there. And Holly and I are also going to be participating together. We're going to be doing a 10-day challenge in the Spiritually Wired membership as well. So I just love having your energy around. So thank you, Holly. And to everyone listening, we just want to remind you that you are spiritually wired for health, abundance of health, of radiant health, of success, of love. And I will see you next week. Thank you for listening to Spiritually Wired. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to follow and leave a review. It really makes a big difference for the podcast. And if you're ready to dive deeper and join a soul-led community, come be a part of the Spiritually Wired membership. With weekly live lessons and a rich library of recorded classes, it's designed to support you every step of the way on your spiritual journey. We currently have a special offer where you can receive your first month for half the price. You can find a link in the show notes or come check it out at reneewalkerwellness.com. Until next time, remember to take some deep breaths. Remember that you are spiritually wired.